my focus has been on podcasting because there's one of the biggest booms that we've seen in terms of a new form of media. Podcasting is exploding everywhere.
Hi, and welcome to the 91 Day Success Podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and I am thrilled today to have one of the foremost podcasting experts that I know here on the podcast with us to give us just tons of value. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast and you doing a podcast, how do you use a podcast for your business? Justin, who we're talking to today, is the guy. He can give you more information. He's probably forgotten more about podcasting than I know. And so, Justin, I just want to thank you for taking time to join us today. And why don't you begin for people that may not be familiar with you? Let's give them just kind of an elevator pitch, 30-second overview. Who is Justin? And tell me a little bit about what you know about podcasting.
Yeah, what a fantastic intro, first of all. But Justin is sort of two people at the moment. So the one side of my life is singer-songwriter for electronic dance music, mostly in Europe, and that's like a booming career of its own. It's busy, but it's not where I've been spending most of my time recently. Over the last year or so, my focus has been on podcasting because there's one of the biggest booms that we've seen in terms of a new form of media. Podcasting is exploding everywhere. And some of the biggest people in the world, some like foremost leaders, political leaders, thought leaders in all spaces, business executives are doing podcast tours now rather than speaking tours, rather than, different forms of media or social media. They're actually going on podcasts. And so that should be a sign to everybody that there's something big happening with podcasting. If somebody like, you know, massive political leader is taking like 2 hours out of their life to go into a podcast, then it should really be a sign that there's something big happening there. And so I position my company so that I can support people who are wanting to get their message out into the world and wanting to present themselves as a thought leader, but really do not need to be spending time messing around with the technology, messing around with the production side of things. So our entire business is put together so that we can make it as easy as possible for these people with amazing messages to be able to share it without any of the complications. So all they really have to do is sit down and talk, and we'll take care of the rest.
Well, I really love that. And I love what you're doing at Podigy as far as the editing and that, and really making podcasting simple for people to get into. Let's take just a moment and talk about, from your perspective, Justin, why do you think that podcasting has really, in the last couple of years, from my perspective, had this huge resurgence? And I'm seeing lots of podcasts, lots of really good podcasts. What's behind that from your perspective?
I think it's probably two things. Number one is something that's maybe a bit cliche, but people are just craving like more authentic forms of media. There's something that is just not and pleasant's not the right word, but there's always a wall that's up between the consumer and the producer of something like TV or even sometimes like YouTube or anything where there's a real separation between the person who's watching and the person who's on the other end. Especially in like live TV when you come on and you get like a little 10 or 5 minute segment. You got to give your pitch and that's like it. That's all you get. And like you can't even have time to think before it's over. And they kept telling us, and this is sort of segueing into the second reason. They kept telling us, people's attention spans have been so reduced by social media and these short clips and everything. And well, sure, that may be true, but what that leaves is that leaves people with a serious hunger for longer form content. And so to many people's surprise, 2 to 3 hour long podcasts get consumed the whole way through, defying all predictions of people's attention spans or lack thereof. And so I think there's a real hunger for long form content that removes all barriers, as many barriers as possible between the listener and the host. It's really a really intimate form of media, and that's why people are able to build such connections with their audiences. And I think the last thing would be that as everything kind of moved online with COVID, people were kind of looking for a new way to just like have conversations with their people who they would usually go out to coffee with or maybe have a little business meeting with or something. And while just hopping on a Zoom call is great, a lot of times you get two people who are really, really expert at what they do, and they have these really deep conversations, and then by the end of it, they go, "Man, we should have recorded that." So podcasting for a
Absolutely.
lot of people is just a way to record those calls, those conversations that should have been recorded anyways. And, even if nobody listens, it's still an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody. And if you're in the business world, you know how everything happens through conversations. That's how businesses are made, through having conversations. So if that's a long-winded way of saying that podcasting I think came at the right time, and it sort of surprised people with how many people are willing to actually spend so much time patiently listening to something.
Well, that makes tons of sense. And I know I do that myself. I have podcasts that I watch. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I think that's one of the things that's really changed with podcasting is it used to be audio only. And now a lot of podcasts like this one we're doing here are started in video and then turned into both audio and video and making that available. But I know I've got podcasters that I watch, as you said, that may do 2 to 3 hour interviews on topics and with people that I really want to learn about, and I'll engage in the entire 2 to 3 hours because of the quality of the information there. And it gives me the ability to really learn about specific people, topics, and things that I want to learn about without having to necessarily, surf through my TV to find it all. While at the same time, with the advent of video podcasts, I admit I watch a lot of those on my TV in my living room. Talk to
Right.
me a little bit about the advent of video podcasting. 'Cause I still think a lot of the business owners and entrepreneurs that are part of our audience, they think podcasting, they think audio only, and audio is still a big part of podcasting. But what's the advent of video podcast and the ability, as we're doing here today, to shoot video and then convert that into audio? What's that done to help with the distribution of the episodes, increasing your audiences, increasing engagement? Any thoughts you have on that with the advent of video podcasting?
Yeah, so I'll try to break it down really clearly and simply, especially for somebody who may be thinking about starting a podcast and wondering whether or not they should do video. So I'm part of the group of people who thinks that starting a podcast and not doing video is a massive mistake. I think that every single podcast now needs to be doing video. The reason being, it's not necessarily for the full video experience that goes onto YouTube. So there is a generation of people, particularly the older generation between like 50 plus, who actually, like, a lot of them just don't want to deal with like Spotify or Apple or streaming platforms, but they know YouTube. YouTube's been around. They've got YouTube down. And if they can watch on YouTube, now able to access a new group of people. However, podcasting as a medium, the reason why you say you listen for so long, I listen so because it's so convenient to have it in my ear when I'm walking, exercising, going to the gym like that. So actually, video is not important for that because actually if you're doing something else, and a lot of people are doing something else when they're listening to podcasts, video
Yep.
doesn't make any difference. If I'm listening in my car, I'm not watching. If I'm mowing the lawn, I'm not watching. So actually the full video, I think, is not where the true benefit in video podcasting lies. You may put it on YouTube and get, 20, 30 views. If you already have a pre-existing audience on YouTube, you might find that you get more, and at that point, your full video is going to pay dividends for sure. But I think that the real benefit of the video lies in how you're going to share the podcast after it's done. So after you've actually recorded the episode. Without video, you really have no like engaging content to promote the episode with. So what people actually like want to see when they're scrolling is not going to be like some little graphic that says like new episode out now. Like literally not a single human being on earth is ever going to care about that. It just does not matter. Again, unless you're already famous. If you're already famous, you can get away with anything. But if you are starting from scratch, a little like graphic isn't going to do anything. So the main thing that's going to get people, at least from social media, to your podcast is using video content, little clips, even just like screen like snapshots of your faces while you're recording, like stuff like that. So anytime that you can get the people's faces onto other places where then you can direct them towards the podcast, that's where the power of video lies. So it's just about giving people pieces of the podcast wherever they consume content, And in order to do that, video is just necessary for the clips, for the full video on YouTube, which sometimes is easier to share in certain places as well. Like YouTube is just more accessible. If you share a Spotify link, then somebody might not have Spotify, and then they don't listen because then they don't know how to get to Apple. So it's just all these little pieces. But video in general is just becoming it's over the last couple of years just become absolutely necessary for people to be using it.
No, I think that's some great insight, and I think it's really relevant for people thinking about it. It's so easy, I can say from my perspective, to record as we're doing here today in video, and then in the background, for those of you who don't know, the technology exists. So we literally take this YouTube video, and the tools automatically convert it into audio, and they share it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts and probably a bunch of other podcasting networks that I'm not even familiar with. And that all happens once that final video is uploaded and published and ready to go. So if you're watching today and you're going, well, podcasting sounds great. I'd love to get information out to my customers. I'd love to be able to share my thoughts and grow my brand, because podcasting is a great way to build authority and to build your brand. Remember, it can just start as we're doing it here today with video, and the tools will take care of so much of that. I also want to point out, as Justin mentioned a bit earlier, if you're worried about editing in that, there are so many services out there, and I want to recommend Justin and Podigy and what they do. They'll take everything that you create and they'll make it amazing. Justin, can you talk to us a little bit about that? Once it's been recorded, talk to us a little bit about the editing and the publication process and how you guys at Podigy help creators make that happen in just an amazing way.
Totally, yeah. Well, I wanna preface it by saying that I think my opinion on podcasting as a tool for your business has changed a little bit over the last few months. So, I think that if you do podcasting and you want to do everything yourself, you probably end up falling falling short in one way or the other. So the first way is that
Absolutely.
your quality, the actual quality of the show is just not good. So it doesn't actually add to your perceived authority, but it actually subtracts. So
Mhm.
that's one way that it can go. The other way is that you do everything yourself. So both ways are doing everything yourself. One way is that you just kind of throw it together and it's kind of not that good. The other way is you do it all yourself, but you spend so much time putting your show together, so much time that it may even take up like 20 or 25% of your overall capacity for productivity. At which point, you may think that it's cheaper to do it yourself, but you are spending thousands, depending on what your business actually makes, like what your business is making or what it has the potential to make. 20% of your productivity could be literally tens of thousands of dollars that you're spending on your podcast. Running a podcast is the same thing as running a business. It's like starting a little business. And so as you probably know, if you have a business, doing everything yourself is a good way to start, but eventually you look for ways to either outsource or automate with AI. And so what I've been recommending to people recently is you got to make sure that podcasting is the right next step for your business. So first of all, first question you have to ask yourself is, are you actually an expert? Like, are you literally, are you really, do you have things like a validated offer of some kind, or have you actually helped people with things and there's proof of that? Because otherwise, like, it's not the time to start. The next thing would to ask yourself would be, do I have a validated offer, and is my business making at least eight to $10,000 every single month? Are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm back. Yep. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it was my internet or yours, but the
I
last thing
have no
I
clue.
heard you say was
Yeah,
the joys of technology, right? Well, that's all right. This is why we pre-record and we'll be able to edit all this
exactly.
out.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
The last thing I remember you talking about is if your business is making, not making $8,000 to $10,000 a month, now is maybe
Okay.
not the right time to start a podcast. Can you kind of pick up in that area and then we'll edit it back?
I'll pick it right up and it'll be seamless for sure.
Perfect. Go
Okay.
ahead.
If your business is not making $8,000 to $10,000 per month, and you don't have like a well-oiled machine of a business with a validated offer, and you're confident in what you're doing, then I just don't think that podcasting is the right next step. I think that there's other ways that you can win a lot quicker than rather than by podcasting. Podcasting is a long game activity, and it should be done in a spirit of calm. And the quickest way to not be calm when you're podcasting is to have financial concerns or so your podcast should start at a time when your business has so much momentum and it's picking up and it's growing, and that's when podcasting is like pouring gasoline on the fire. But before that, you've got more time than money. So you have decisions as to where you can spend your time. You can spend your time getting to 10K a month and beyond and getting your business into a space where it's financially stable enough to actually, infuse it back with some cash flow to keep on growing it. Or you can spend your time making a podcast. And spending your time making a podcast is not going to be the best use of your time when you're not actually financially stable. And also the quality of everything is going to suffer because you're going to be doing it all yourself. You're going to be disorganized, you're going to have too many things on the go, your brain's going to be cluttered, your work's going to suffer, your podcast is going to suffer, and everything's going to kind of get done like halfway. And so that's just not cool. So I mean, one way that you could do a podcast before you're at the 10K per month zone is to maybe find a strategic partner who you could trade services with. If you were going to work with someone like us, the first thing that I would figure out is, where are you at in your business? Are you in a position where this podcast is actually going to deliver results for you? And the first step of having a podcast that delivers results, I mean, I believe that podcasting should be done with the expectation of getting a return on your investment, especially because it's a business activity. And so a business activity should produce some type of return on investment. And if you don't have a validated offer, if you don't have an offer that is already proven, that you've sold to multiple people, that you've got ironed out the systems on the back end that you could deliver confidently, then what's going to happen from your podcast? You have nowhere to put people, you have nowhere to send people, you have no way to recoup your investment on your time, and if you are outsourcing it, on your money. So first thing I figure out is, like, where are people's offers at? Are they in a space where this is the right next step? And if they're not, then I either say, you know what, maybe come back when you're at the right next time, or I direct them towards my free community, which is really a space for people who say, you know what, I'm just going to go and do it myself anyways. And I say to those people, okay, well, the least I can do is provide you with some of the systems and some of the resources that I use for my clients, that I use for my own podcast, and just deliver them for free in that little container. The idea with the community is that we're going to gain people in there, and over time, as people figure out that podcasting is maybe a bit more complicated than they thought, then if they want help with the implementation, we'll be there to support them through that. But all of that is to say that before even considering starting a podcast because it's trendy or because you have a lot of ideas to say, you have to learn as a business owner that saying no can be just as valuable as saying yes. And directing your attention towards things is a really, really particular something that you should take very seriously. And podcasting is just not the right next step unless you are already at 8 to 10K per month with your business. That's what I believe.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I think your numbers are spot on. I think we may see things a little bit differently about how to get started in podcasting, and that just because I know, even at that $8,000 to $10,000 a month mark, there's a lot of business owners that don't have a lot of extra cash sitting around to pay people to help
Totally.
out with. And I'm a huge believer personally, and I love this, by the way. The fact that we don't agree is great in my mind. I really think that, when it comes to whether it's podcasting, which we're talking about today, or doing video or anything like that, you need to suck before you're good at it. And I think, unfortunately, I think too many business people wait until they're going to be an expert. And that means they didn't start maybe when they were at 10 to 20,000 in revenue. They waited until they got to 100 or 200,000 in revenue. And that means a lot of people just don't end up doing it. And my perspective, and I'd love your thought on this, Justin, my perspective is that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners miss out on opportunities because they want to make sure it's perfect. And they're more worried about perfect than are about done. Can you give me your thoughts? And again, I'm expecting we're not going to be in total alignment. That's cool. Tell me a little bit from your perspective, what your thoughts are on my perspective, that, sometimes it's better to start and suck right now, knowing that, nobody's going to watch your first 5 podcasts anyway. you're going to be down the road a bit. I know in my case, I probably had 20 episodes in before we really started getting traction.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
I think it's great. I think what you're saying applies to. So I think there's two types of people who may be wanting to get into podcasts. The first is wanting to use it as a tool for their business, and they want to see a return on their investment from their activities, and they've got a lot going on, and they just want to like get it done right away and make it great. And then the other type of person may be wanting to podcast because first of all, you can be an expert and not have your business together. You can be a little bit older,
True.
maybe even, in your mid 30s, like or in your 40s and stuff. Like you can be at that space where you've had all the time, where you've already gone through maybe school, or you've had all kinds of education, and you are an expert. Of course you're an expert. And so combine that with a actual drive and passion for wanting to start a podcast, and I think that at that point, you're sort of getting into the space of combining hobby with business. And so at that point, I think that it's perfectly fine to start to just put it together however you can, outsource the pieces cheaply that you can. However, the people that I serve, the people that I wanna serve, are the people that come at podcasting, and I don't wanna say that people who come at it differently aren't doing this, but who come at it really, really strategically, and they really want to get the biggest bang for their buck. Because one thing that you said is, like, I don't remember exactly what you said, but my thought was that all I wanna do when I start a podcast with somebody is make sure that it truly is the right next step for their business. And
Hmm.
if it's not, there's a lot of things that aren't the right next step for somebody's business. And the last thing that I want to do, isn't act for them just because I want to get the money in the bank. So to answer your question, I think that I think that if you're already an expert, and if you know that podcasting, or you think at least that podcasting is something that you might actually love doing and that gives you energy, and starting and jumping into a free community, getting as much free information as you can, and trying to systemize it as much as possible so that you can step away from it as much as possible, that's great. However, for the other type of person that is looking to scale and looking to really just focus in on their attention, something like what we do allows them to sit down for just 1 hour a week and have their entire podcast done for them. And obviously, as you can expect, like that's not a particularly cheap service. It's a high value service. So I don't know if that perfectly answers your question, but I really like that you brought that up. I mean, when I started my podcast, like I just threw it together, and I don't regret doing it. I also love podcasting. I love the whole medium, but I was lucky enough to be able to have my team to support me with it, but it wasn't systemized very well, and I was just kind of throwing pieces together. So so yeah, I hope that kind of gives a little bit of clarity.
Oh no, absolutely. And again, I love the discussion back and forth because I think at the end of the day, we're probably more aligned than what maybe it may seem as we head into things. Because I agree with you. You don't want to start anything for your business that's going to promote it without making sure it's at the right time to do that. I don't want to start doing ads. I don't want to start running webinars. I don't want to start doing podcasting, whatever it is, until it's at the right time for my business. And I'm also a huge advocate of when you do it, to do it well. I think I was just at a conference last week, and one of my quotes I've always talked about is done today is better than perfect tomorrow. And they added to that, one of the speakers that I love, who also happens to do an amazing podcast in her space. She added, done well today is better than perfect tomorrow. Because I
Right.
don't think we want to encourage people to just put junk out, because you're right. That is going to hurt your brand. My perspective on it is that there's so many people. And again, I'm a lot older than you are. I'm in my 50s. So there's a lot of people that are in my circles that are in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, and are going, I don't have anything to say to people. I just don't know what I would talk about. And I find they have so much expertise that if they would be willing, as you said, to take that hour or so a week, record an episode, either talking about something they do, doing interview style like we're doing here, whatever the case may be, and then they would not worry about the editing and the optimization and outsource that, because I'm a huge fan of having a team to outsource that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because you guys do such an amazing job of making those episodes happen. So I think we're probably pretty much in line with where we're coming from there. And I really appreciate your perspective about, again, making sure that as people get into it, it's the right thing to do next in their business. Because while I'm a huge fan of content creation, and I'm a topical authority guy, meaning I want clients to create content that makes them a topical authority. We all know that putting out rotten content, no matter how much of it you put out, isn't going to make you an authority, is not going to make you the go-to expert. It's going to make you the laughing stock. So I think we're pretty well aligned there. So you
So
mentioned very briefly your free resource, and while I am a huge advocate of recommending people look to you, Apology, and having you help them everything from what I understand, for setup and outsourcing and strategy and editing and all that. If they're maybe not quite ready for that, can you tell us a little bit about your Coach Cast Academy and where that fits in, and who maybe in the audience should go to Coach Cast first and who should reach out to you at Podigy first?
totally. Yeah. So the free community is really exciting because I've just always loved teaching. Like I have a real like I've been in high school rather than kind of picking up a job, I decided to teach guitar and teach singing. And I did that for a few years, and then a couple other things where I just kind of naturally gravitate towards teaching. And so the community is a really like it's for the business obviously, but it's also like a bit of like a passion project because I really love putting things together that I know people are going to use to actually like that's actually going to be useful to people. So over in our community, the goal right now is just to bring people in so that people who are doing podcasting independently have a space where they can get answers to questions and have like the most up-to-date resources on how they can best use like AI for their podcast, how they can best use outsourcing to VAs for their podcast. And the reason why we made it free is because I just believe that by leading with by leading with giving as much as we possibly can, we just put so much goodwill out into the space that it 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 actually positions us as I don't know, like it puts us in a much better space because people feel so much gratitude for being done a favor, and we really are expecting nothing in return for that. And so the free space is for people who may be at a stage where they just want to like put a plan for a show together, or maybe they're really really hungry and they're just ready to go, and they've even got like a small team, like maybe a VA or a couple VAs who might be able to help with the systems. That community is going to be a really really good resource for those people. My fiance and I run it together, we run the business together as well, but right now in there we're literally just like coaching people by chat totally for free. So if somebody in here was wanting to come into the community for now, into a free community with a bunch of other podcasters to get like only the information that's actually relevant, they don't have to go and search
Mhm.
all over the internet. You can hop in there right now, and for the next month, for all of December, we're just doing free coaching by chat. So literally any questions that you want answered right there. It's something that I was charging before like $400 or $500 per month for, just because it's like daily coaching support within chat. So that's probably super valuable. That's totally free right now over there. But then the done for you service is for
Mhm.
people who are at, at least the 10K per month mark, but even beyond. Like podcasting is such a good tool for people who are in the space where their business is well put together. They've got a great amount of monthly revenue. Things are flowing smoothly, but they want to go from simply working with their clients and kind of being small scale to actually transitioning into being like a thought leader. And so maybe that might mean that like they go and they want to now write a book or something, or they may want to go and transition to public speaking or something like that. Well, another way to do that is to start a podcast. And so for people who are in that space, they've usually got a lot of connections, a lot of really high level connections in their network, people who would be great for interviews, and they got a lot of expertise, and they've already got a lot of resources and freebies and all sorts of things that they can make podcast episodes about and tie it all in together to actually drive back to their business. And so our program is a really good fit for coaches who are at least 10K per month, mostly coaches, and who just don't want to mess around with the tech of podcasting, but who know that they've got an important message and who have a ton of knowledge and just have this pull towards the medium. Our team has all the support, all of the processes completely done for them so that they literally can just sit down for an hour a week, do their interview, do their solo episode, and then drop the file to us. And the rest of the production just gets completely taken care of. And then on top of that, we also do a ton of coaching with them. So there's bi-weekly coaching. So we're always like keeping in touch with them. There's coaching by chat like all the time. So it's just like podcasting can be really lonely and also very confusing. And so what we wanted was to create something specifically for coaches because we're coaches ourselves. We love working with coaches. There really wasn't much on the market for coaches like this. And so we wanted to create something that just did the entire process for them so that they could just kind of sit back, podcast really, really well in a way that like looks and sounds insane, but not have to actually really lift a finger for the production side of things.
Makes perfect sense. And I think, again, it's an amazing service that's available. And I want to encourage anybody to, learn more about what Justin's doing and see how that is. Head out to Podigy Podcast. We're going to put a link down here so you can take a look at that, see what services he offers. If you're looking to get started and you have a successful business, from my perspective, his Podigy Podcast source is amazing. And it's a great value to make your business soar. If you're not maybe at that point, then check out his other stuff over at the CoachCast Academy. As you mentioned, he's doing some amazing offers here in December and allowing some free access in there. I've been in that group and taking a look around. It's amazing. And the amount of value, Justin, that you're dropping there is just stellar. So thank you for doing that. It's an amazing resource for those that maybe aren't quite ready yet to fully commit to where they're headed. So that's awesome.
Totally.
If somebody's listening to the podcast today, Justin, and they're going down the road and maybe they're listening, not watching, and they want to know how do they get in touch with you and they're not going to see the domains and everything else they put up there, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and connect with you and what you're doing?
Honestly, the absolute best way, if they want access to this like exclusive offer for the coaching by chat in the community to help get the strategy for their podcast put into place, to put all their podcast dreams and ideas and thoughts into one little spot, then DMing me on Instagram. You can DM me 91 because we're on the 91 day, right? So that's how I'll know that you came from here. And so you can DM me the numbers 91 on Instagram, and our Instagram is super easy. It's Podigy Podcasts. That's it. And so maybe we can even link that below. And then you just go on there and just send us
You
a
sure
DM.
can.
Just say 91 and I'll know, okay, you came from here. So we'll drop you into that community. You can get free coaching by chat. If you think that you're within the range of actually like taking the podcast idea that you've got in your head and making it a core element of your business and using it to just explode your authority and sell your offer and bring on big guests and just like turn yourself into a thought leader. If you're at that level, then also you can DM me 91 and we'll have a conversation and I'll know where you're at from that. So, but it's good to, for anybody who's listening, this is a good thing that you can do. When you go into a podcast and the host asks you where people should go to find you, never, ever, ever start listing off a bunch of places where people can find you. So it's always like, oh, go to my website, go to my Instagram, go to my Facebook. It's like, okay, wait, they're not going to go anywhere if you tell them to do that because it's just too many things, right? And the confused mind is just not going to do any of that. So instead, you can do exactly what I did. If you're active on Instagram, maybe you're active on Facebook too, but it's better on Instagram. Just give them the Instagram handle. Hopefully it's simple. If not, the host will write it down below in the show notes and get them to DM something specific from the show so that you can track which of your podcast episodes were the most successful so that you know how to better optimize your interviews in the future. So yeah, that's just a really that is probably one of the most important pieces of advice that you can take when you're doing guesting. If you're doing a lot of guesting, just by messing up your call to action, you could be sacrificing like pretty much all of the of the potential responses that you could be getting.
That's a great tip. And I'm a huge fan of the phrase, the confused mind never buys. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about here. We go down this litany of things, no one's going to remember any of it, and they're not going to do anything in the process. So,
Totally.
as you mentioned, Justin, our podcast is called the 91 Day Success Podcast. And I didn't prep you for this. I try not to prep guests because I want kind of an off the cuff perspective. But I
Sure.
love to ask our guests who are excellent in entrepreneurship and starting business. if someone's out there and maybe they're getting ready to step out of a corporate career, start something new, maybe just because of the economy, they're trying to figure out how to start a new side hustle. If you had $1,000 to put into a business and you had 3 months or 91 days, what things would you do in the first 91 days to set yourself up to hopefully hit that $10,000 revenue mark after 90 days? Any thoughts on that? Again, I know I didn't prep you, so there's no right or wrong, but I'd love just to get your gut reaction. What would you do in that case to build a business with just $1,000 to go towards that business in 91 days?
I would I would probably I honestly I don't even know off the top of my head what I would do with $1,000. I don't even know if I would even maybe use $1,000, but let's just put the $1,000 to the side for a second.
Sure.
I would probably just head over to Chat GPT and go and find I don't remember exactly where to find it, but I would go and find a Chat GPT prompt that allowed me to formulate an idea for an offer. So there's some really good Chat GPT prompts that can pretty much just like outline exactly what to do to start a business.
Absolutely.
I would get a really tight offer, a really tight avatar that it was for. Then I would set up my social profiles, Instagram and Facebook. I wouldn't even do a website. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong about that. I don't know. I wouldn't do a website.
Fair
Personally,
enough.
I've had all my success from Facebook and Instagram. I would set up my profiles properly. Maybe I'd spend a couple $100 to get some really nice headshots, and then I would just start talking to people. So I'd send 100 friend requests on Facebook every single day. I'd follow 100 accounts on Instagram and DM like, 20 people a day on there. And I would just start talking to people, as many people as possible, and come from a place of I'm new at this. I've got this offer. Maybe, if you've got 10 minutes, I could show you the offer and you could let me know if it's complete garbage or if maybe there's something here. And you'd find that, maybe 1 in 10 people are gonna say yes to that, and then after sending, like 200 DMs, you've done, like, 20 validation calls, and so now you can tell, is your offer crap or is it maybe something that somebody might actually pay for? And you can get a ton of feedback from that. How much should I charge for it? Maybe this is not good for this market. Who is this actually for? Like, what's the actual avatar for? Is my avatar off or is it right? And then once the offer is validated, well, now you know that you've got something valuable, and then I would probably just start creating a bunch of authority building content to post on Facebook and Instagram to start positioning yourself. And, maybe find some podcasts to go on with the other like 800. I don't know if you had 90 days, I might hire a VA to take care of a few internal processes. That might be how I would spend the other like 800, just outsource a lot of the back end stuff and but yeah, like, I mean, if you look at, like, what someone like maybe Alex Hormozy would say is, like, literally all that you need to start a business and get it to 10K per month is a really good offer that you validated, and then some content to go along with it to bring people in the door, and then you just start selling it. You can sell it for cheaper than you originally thought just to get people in the door and get case studies going. But yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Oh, I love it. I think that's great advice overall, and I think you're spot on with a way to get things started. So thank you for that. I think that's a great insight, and I think it'd be a great way to kick that off. And the neat thing is that works whether you're trying to do a new side hustle while you're keeping your job, or whether or not you're an entrepreneur or business owner right now who's already got a business. Maybe you're thinking you want to add another business into that mix or wherever. It's a great advice, and I'm entirely aligned with what you're doing. I think that it reminds me. You mentioned Alex Hormozy. It reminds me of his book. He talks about if you just reach out every single day, and I believe it's to 25 people, whatever happens, hell or high water, today I'm going to reach out to 25 cold contacts and send them a message, ask them some way that's providing value, or as you said, asking for an opinion because people love to share their opinions.
They
And
do.
in that process, so like you mentioned, you may get 1 in 10. That's probably pretty right numbers. But if you do that over the course of 10 days, that's 250 people. That's 25 presentations. Out of those 25, a handful of those are going to go, hang on, can I do this? And you're going to get some of
Exactly.
your first clients as well. And you didn't have to spend a penny on advertising or anything else. You just asked them for their opinion. People love to give their opinions. And then some of them are going to turn into clients. Now you've got case studies. Now you've got success stories. Now you can leverage that to expedite that process as you move forward. I think that's
100%.
fabulous advice.
Thank
Fabulous
you.
advice.
And you added, yeah, you added really good stuff to it. Something that I forgot. Yeah, like out of those validation calls, handful of those people are going to be like, "Wait, this like could I do this?" And there you go. And then you've got a couple people in the door right away. So yeah, 100%, that's what I would do.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody who stayed with us through the whole episode. Justin, huge thanks to you for taking time out. I know you've been traveling over in Europe and everything else, and we've had a little bit of difficulty connecting. I'm so thankful that you were able to make time. And I just want to encourage you, if you're listening to the podcast today, you're going, my business is at a point where it's time to really look into podcasting. Do yourself a favor, reach out to Justin on Instagram, as he mentioned, and learn how he and his team can help make you a success online. You will not regret it. With that, thanks everybody. We'll see you on the other side.